Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist.
Produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of
the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another civilization.
Most of the people in here are just your reflections. They're your mistakes.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
1 million of the planet's 8 million species are threatened.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act.
Your lives and the credibility of the United Nations is at stake.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
The reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization.
They're trying to take you out with bullshit.
The experience of the past 2 years has proven beyond doubt that no nation can appease the Nazis.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
In the language of the U.S. Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This is the Garden of Doom.
Welcome everyone into Garden of Doom, and this episode we are welcoming in Abbie Martin, and as she told me to say, she's just Abbie, but she's not just Abbie. She does a bunch of things, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll get into it. But if this is Garden of Doom, you know that what she does is probably not raise and breed cats.
One would like to think.
I mean, that's what I'm counting on anyway for the show air quality anyway.
I love it.
All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you would what you would put on your resume, I suppose, and then we'll go from there.
I love it. Well, I have, I've been in my whole corporate persona, and part of that was killing me, and I can tell the whole story, and I hope we can pause this. I'm going to let the dog out because she's already starting to whine as soon as we started. So it was very what I would call shut down. I kind of had this philosophy that nothing mattered. There was no bigger reasoning, no bigger purpose, no nothing. And then my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so then I really felt that way. And she was really into studying A Course in Miracles and just into all this stuff. And I was just so shut down. And so the day she passed, my son, he had to be 2 at the time, maybe not even 2. And everybody saw him, when I cried, look up and said, "Oh, Gigi." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, they saw what they wanted to see, and took that. And the day of her funeral, I had a hawk sitting on my car, just sitting there. And I thought, well, that's incredible. And then I, didn't think anything else again of that one. And then 3 days after, my kids were watching a TV show, and my son, who had said, looked up at her, got up, turned her. He was like, "Get off me, get off me." He was like clearly shaking somebody off of him. So I was looking at him like, "You okay over there, little man?" And because he was so engrossed in the cartoon, and he got up and he just hugged the air. And I just had this heart opening and said, I'm wrong. Like, there's more in this world. And I started studying. So that's when you asked me what I did. I was like, I've done it all. I studied with every psychic reader I could find, every person, trying to really understand all of that. I got all of these certifications. So I learned energy medicine. I learned, how to do EFT. I learned, there was everything, and I ate it all up. And then, everything, all of that's wonderful. I really learned a lot of the psychic things to develop all of that.
Can you pause for a second and go, how do you embark on that journey, and how do you go to places and get certifications, and how do you decide what's credible, and what's not? Because I imagine this type of thing is not heavily regulated by any government body.
It's not, yeah.
So you'd have to do your homework and go, to know who you can trust and which certifications are worth something. So, how did you do that research? How did you vet it? How did you filter out sort of the chaff and decide on what was, however we want to put it, and decide on what was the good stuff? And I'm sure you didn't, bat 1,000. I'm sure you, hit some brick walls before that, and that's not this story. But so how did you find the good ones, and really, so how can audience members find the good ones?
So I've had a lot of people ask me, like, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? So when this happened for me, it was almost 20 years ago. It was a different world, so I think now there's a lot more resources than what I had back then. There was no TikTok. There was no, people weren't putting a lot of this out there. So I had Yahoo groups. I'm dating myself. But there was also a little magazine called Natural Awakenings, and I just flipped through that, and you found all these practitioners, and I just had to go with it. And the other one was meetups. So it's really, Jeff, I'm not kidding, kind of shocking that I'm still here. I just went to anybody's house. I was like, sure, I'm going to show up and learn about crystals. I was in people's living rooms. They had tools to practice meditations and in front, holding things to measure your heart rate. So I just tried them all and kind of saw what fit and what didn't. There were some that I could tell very clearly, they had probably taken some sort of online class and they were teaching something, and I was like, so I didn't understand it, that I was intuitive about it at the time, other than I could tell they didn't feel right. That they weren't coming from the right place. I could always tell when somebody wanted just my money, So what I tell people now, I'm like, look through the different things. We have so many options, events near me, all of those things you can find. And I think the best way to do it is to just go and explore it. Of course, a lot of people in Wicca read a lot of books. There's a lot out there because it can be a very solitary practice too. So a lot of it's how you feel. So is that a good long-winded answer for you?
Sure. And what certifications do you have? I know that you said letters, EFT, and whatever. So what do they stand for?
So EFT is emotional freedom technique, which is working with your energy meridians. And so it's a technique a lot of people use to reduce anxiety and to kind of work with your energy systems. I did become a master Wiccan. I ended up training for years with a woman, when I learned how to do some more physical things, live blood cell analysis. I can do iridology, where I take a picture of your eye and I can tell you everything happening in your body just off of a picture of your eye. And face reading, you can usually tell a lot by what's happening in a person's body by looking at their face. All of those things.
And you know what the last question is going to be, and it's about this pushkin right here.
Yeah. Everybody goes, wait, can you look in my eyes? I'm like, do you really want to know?
I did. I'm gonna, but we're gonna leave it till the end. This is the tease. People have to wait till the end. And of course, if I'm too crestfallen, then I could just go, okay, see you next week, maybe. Yeah.
So for me, I went through all of that. I learned, and I definitely had some flubs. I'll tell you, it was not fun. I met a woman. She was a psychic, and she did like something called like a 0 point thing. And, you know, she gave us all these readings, and because my son was also really not well when he was younger. So I was willing to try anything at the time, you know? And so for me, all of those things that I've learned, and I took a lot of the psychic formation classes, you know, never any certifications in that. That's not true. I did one, took me a couple of years to become a 12th dimensional energy healer. Yeah. So I've done all in that, and that teacher was phenomenal. But what brought it all home for me was this one day. I have this little group. We call each other the woo-woos. And every month we just try something different to just see what's out there. And we would try all of these different energy things. And it was coming up on Halloween, and it was my turn to host. And they were like, we should do something witchy. And I was like, all right. I was like, it's my turn. I'll take that on. So I just literally got one book, and what for me, you know, it was like a life altering thing of like all of these things to me that some people would say like, oh, it's airy fairy. It's, you know, whatever. To me, Wicca and witchcraft is a very grounding energy. And so for me, like it took everything that was all had out there in my head and helped me ground it. And that's kind of how I started my way on that.
What specifically attracted you to the Wicca, or what was it that attracted itself to you? Perhaps. Yeah. But what was it? I mean, we've had Wicca on before, and we've had witches on that were not Wicca as well. So I'm aware that all Wicca are witches, but not all witches are Wicca. I also know that Wicca or Wiccan is, you know, sort of a paganist in the animist kind of sense. So you know, all things have spirit, not necessarily deified, not necessarily like like the Egyptian or the Greek pantheon of gods, but there may be spirits and energies that are represented by, you know, deities, whether they're whether it's exactly Apollo or Osiris or Marduk. It doesn't really matter. They have their own names. But what is it about Wicca that attracted you to it, and what are your major takeaways from it?
Sure. For me, the first thing that it was, I resisted ritual my whole life. I should also tell you, like, I'm pretty certain I had to have been a nun in a previous life. I was teaching kids how to pray in 3rd grade, like, and I was not raised religious, like, like, so for me, prayer, I had that, you know, pushed out of me at a certain point, but I always remembered that going like, wow. And so that formality. So when I learned about the components of the spell, doing that, it was so much more than what, like, and that's a whole nother topic we could talk about, where I think people take it of like just a little spells, like a little enchantment. I'm talking like just soul deep connection, like connecting into the earth, going through the whole process, calling everybody in, working with the elements. That was just mind altering for me, you know, and like it just sort of opened everything up for me and gave me a framework that I could work with that called to me. I know that doesn't call to everybody, you know. I start talking about the elements and some people I can just see they're like, okay. But for me, it connected something and really helped me to go deeper in my practice, and it just gave me a framework to do. That's like everything that I've done after that is within that framework. So it really worked for me.
I'm going to overgeneralize greatly here, but are we talking about the 4 sort of Western elements, or are we talking about the 5 more Dharmic elements?
Like air, water, fire, earth, and then some people will say metal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's in Chinese. That's the thing. But my primitive understanding is that Indian and Japanese and some others, you know, are the same, which certainly makes sense, because you would think that whoever originally came up with that or inspired that, they sort of migrated in those directions and kept on going. But okay, so either way, it works. So the elements, whether you what state of matter doesn't much matter. By the way, when I don't know how old you are. You don't know how old I am. I'm probably a bit older than you, maybe more than a bit. But I grew up with 3 states of matter. And I had a guest I don't know, 6 months ago, and he advised me that there was a 4th state of matter. I'm like, okay, fine, there's a 4th state of matter. Then I had a second guest to mention a 4th state of matter, and so I said, I'm going to Google this. Well, there's a 4th state of matter, but my second guest actually said now he's discovered a 5th state of matter. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that to be verified by the world. But what I have learned in doing this show is that even in the few short years that I've been doing this show and reporting on things that were sort of reported, on the fringe or, in the, as you would put, the woo-woo sector, 2 or 3 years later, or sometimes even less, then it's reported by National Geographic, then it comes into Smithsonian, then all of a sudden, it's in, Science Inc. or whatever you want, then it makes its way into the mainstream a few years later. So I've become a lot less skeptical about a lot of things like that. And I think we've all learned what maybe we forgot somewhere along the line, that science is an evolution. It's a testing of cause and effect. And as people say, at some point, leeches was science. And then somebody will say, well, you know what? Leeches are still useful for a couple of things. So, there's all, I don't even know where I'm going. I'm starting to get in the recitation of facts, but I'm going down the British science fiction route of, there's 12 dimensions. So back to you. I think that, I have spoken to a lot of mambos, voodoo priests and priestesses, practitioner of Egyptian magic, practitioner of Chinese magic. And, a lot of people say magic is magic. And much to my dismay, most of the practitioners I have encountered are good. Obviously in Garden of Doom, I want to find some evil. I want to find some chaos. I want to find the Scarlet Witch. I want to find, Elsbeth before Wicked, the play version where, they turned her into a sympathetic character. I want some bad stuff, but it seems like, you might also be a good witch. So, what is it about Wicca that seems to turn witches into maybe better citizens than maybe some people of more traditional faiths? Or is it just seeking the other and finding the right other? It's not so much the Wicca. Which is the chicken, which is the egg?
Well, I think kind of like doctors, I think they probably got it from Wicca, do no harm. And I think when at least, I always say, like, listen, this is what I believe. I'm always willing to have my mind changed. So my belief set at the moment, is as you start, I think as you get older, you start to realize, what you put out, you get back. Mm-hmm. And I'm with you. I think I love watching all of those shows with the bad bitches, who get out there and they're like, and in real life, I think we all have that within us. So I think every witch could be on that side. And that's part of what I think doing, this work, because it helps keep you connected in a way to something bigger. You're calling in for help and you're seeking balance. So when you're staying in that place of balance, it's hard to be all good or all bad. You're balanced.
Yeah, I know that you mentioned that you also studied shamanism. And I don't think any longtime listener of the show would be surprised by that, because I think that if they've listened to enough episodes, they realize that they're almost different headings of the same thing. There might be, some specific rituals or ingredients or methods that are somewhat different, but they're basically the same thing. But it is the hope of every show that every episode you have new listeners and you grow your audience. So just for the sake of the new folks out there, or reminders, what attracted you to shamanism, and what might be the compare and contrast? What are the similarities and the differentiations between Wicca and shamanism?
Sure. I definitely wouldn't portray myself like I didn't go far of like getting, giving myself that title.
You didn't go into the Amazon and live there for 3 years?
Yeah, like I think there's a lot of people who use the word shaman, and so I give the air quotes. So I would say I work with some people who, have that's in their DNA. And one of the things that I learned is I was very attracted to the commonality between all of this. And that's I started going down that path. And when I really looked at it, because I have a lot of people in my life who would say that I'm doing the devil's work. You know what I mean? Like they feel very strongly with that. And so as I really started to research, I looked up, like giving a shaman walk. And I've been through certain things. I looked up, what Masons did in their ceremonies, what, I could get the whole list, of every type of like sorority, fraternity. I looked through like doing communion, doing any type of religious ceremony, and I compared all of them and I made a table. I did a whole class on it because it was like, they're all the same. Mm-hmm. They're all the same steps. They just use some different tools and different words. But if I could go through each one, I could show you they're doing an opening, piece here. They're calling in a certain thing. They're, a certain deity, then they're doing their ask, and then they're doing their gratitude, and then they're closing it. It's just the pomp and circumstance around it that looks different. So once I really got that, I stopped giving a crap what anybody thought in terms of, where it was on the spectrum of good versus evil, because it's all the same to me.
Interesting. It's fine because if there's people in your family saying you're doing the devil's work, of course, if you are Wiccan, there is no devil. That does not exist in the belief system. But because you have multidisciplinary, I mean, is there a heaven or hell in your particular belief system? Are there angels and demons? Or jinn, or do you avoid titles? Period. It's just energies. So this is where my eclectic mix. For me personally, I also really am a student of A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And it's a channeled work that was done by Jesus, and basically that message is that this is hell. This is the ego's world. And where we feel so guilty for being here that we create all this guilt and drama, and you're going to hell, but we don't realize we're already in hell. And so that feels right to me. It's like Lost. They were already dead. They were already dead. So I think we are living in this illusory world. We think we're here. We think we're having a physical experience. So for me, Wicca witchcraft is a way to honor the body, the physical experience. And I don't know, I feel like this is hell. There's a lot of really bad things that happen here. Like, I just can't see that this is, anything but that. And I think heaven is something we made up. I think that our humans made up. I feel like, if we could even fractionally comprehend what the real divine source was, our minds would be blown. I feel like that's not what we envision. I don't think we can. Well, now I have to ask you to blow the mind. And obviously, since your mind isn't blown, you can't tell me exactly what it is, but what do you think it's closer to? Oh, nobody's ever asked me that. So part of what I do when I do my rituals is I spend a lot of time really trying to connect into that divine space. And so I have to give it human qualities. Sure. And so I tend to look at it as like I can visualize like a ball of energy, kind of formless. And I think that's why the thought of like, hey, what would it be like to be separate from this ball of oneness where nothing is good or bad, it just everything is. What would it be like, to be an individual? I'm like, oh, that would be fun. And so we thought it would be fun to create this world. So I think the divine is just a place where I want to say it's just formless, and it's just pure
unconditional acceptance, love, and just peace.
So it's really from within. It's not like we lost our way when we turned our back on literally Mother Earth, Maya, Gaia.
Yeah.
The sacred feminine, however we want. But so it's not. It's a lot of people in shamanism and witchcraft, and there is a big leaning towards the divine feminine as being, at either the stronger or at least the co-equal with, the Sky Father and or chaos. And the Sky Father oftentimes in a lot of the older religions especially seems to be a little bit absent, sort of lets his kids sort of run amok. Sometimes they have to supplant him. Sometimes they have to supplant several generations of hymns. But not so much with the mom. The feminine sort of says that sort of survived. Even now is that the sacred feminine sort of remains strangely stable. Even if you look at Christianity, I mean, it is, you have Virgin Mary. That doesn't change. We've got a Father, Son, a Holy Ghost, but there's one mom. And and as religions slowly evolve more into man-centric, which I think has definitely been the case, at least in the last 10 or 20,000 years. I can't speak to before that necessarily. You can sort of see the echoes in things that don't change, but we have tried to erase Yahweh's, wife Ashura. We sort of erased, the first she, which maybe was Lilith, maybe wasn't, but there certainly was man and woman formed. And then, like a few paragraphs later, a rib was plucked to form Eve. I mean, there was man and woman, and then there was, not redundant woman, another woman. I mean, which is, just an endlessly juicy plot hole. And, if you look at it as a work of fiction, if you look at it as a way of divine scripture, that's Clue, that's a rather big one. Anyway.
Well, a couple things I would say, and I think the fact that we keep trying to understand the origin story is what keeps us fighting and lost, instead of just saying, I don't know, but I'm here. What can I do to move forward? Right. We're constantly looking back. I can't speak enough to it eloquently like some other people can, but I went down the path for a while, studying the Anunnaki and trying to understand that origin story and all of that. And I realized, I was like, I have this feeling that there's so many more origin stories that we just don't know yet, or that will be coming. And what you were saying, I was like, they get dropped into the collective and it takes a minute for it to expand. And I think right now what's happening is we are dropping into bringing in more of the divine feminine, so that is, people are starting to shift, and it's uncomfortable at the moment for a lot of people.
It is, you have the whole go woke, go broke, and, and there are signs of the mark, things can't be forced. It's got to be natural. But I didn't mean to go so into it, but when you told me the story about how all the ceremonies sort of have the same anatomy, and, and it struck a little responsive chord with me, because that's what I found with religion, theosophy, whatever you want, mythologies, that they're all so darn similar that there has to be some root to them, whether it all came from, I say sort of tongue in cheek, some campfire 300,000 years ago, on what is now the Sahara Desert, but would have been then the Sahara Paradise, or if it, actually came from some source from beyond the stars, whatever. What I think maybe matters, but it doesn't matter because it's not definitive. It's not dispositive. I can't prove it or disprove it. But it reminded me that I had the fortune recently of going to a bar mitzvah and then very shortly after a Catholic wedding. And I usually tune out during religious ceremonies, but for whatever reason, I paid attention. I pay more, ever since I've done the show, I try to pay more attention to things. And it struck me that the shape of the room and so much, it's what you said. It was the same. I mean, right down to opening something. Sure, in the bar mitzvah, they open up, the I can't remember what it's called. I'm terrible. Basically, the tabernacle, and they bring out the Torah. In Catholic, they do something. I think it's like the frankincense or the censers or whatever. Yeah. Whatever it is, there's the same thing. I mean, obviously, the bar mitzvah has no communion, but there is the same sort of, but there's a chalice cup. I can't remember the names of anything now. Anyway, you take the one.
It's all of those, and it's all the symbolism of everything, and yeah.
I mean, even the configuration of the building and the stained glass, you really can't tell the difference much, except for obviously when something's Jesus, you can. But other than that, unless you're a biblical scholar, I doubt that you would know much of what belongs to what. And the zodiac. The zodiac is there everywhere, and before it as well. And that's what I was going to ask you. Do you also study or practice astrology at all?
I know people who do. It's one thing in my life that goes in one ear and out the other. I love it. You tell me everything about it. I buy it hook, line, and sinker, but if I couldn't regurgitate it to you.
I have a show on it, so that's good. Actually, there's one specifically on it, but there are several others that really are on it as well. I just didn't know they were going to be going into them, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. How about tarot? Do you read tarot cards?
I do.
All right, very cool. There's a show on tarot, actually, again, probably more than one, but one that was specifically dedicated to that. Okay, so you're looking to study Wicca. First of all, do you look for a coven? I mean, is it the same as the story about the other certification? Is it sort of hit or miss, or like how do you find the right Wicca study group for you? And did you join a coven? Do you belong to a coven? And
no, I don't. I tried. I tried to do a couple of different things, and I found that I do it differently. I think that a lot of people you meet that do witchcraft or Wicca will tell you that their practice is a little bit special to them, like there's certain frameworks, but the way they do it. I tried joining one, and I for me, like I told you, when I actually sit in and I really drop into that ritual, it's a deeply moving, connecting experience. And I found in the group setting for me, it was kind of perfunctory. And I just didn't feel that. I didn't feel it, like it just was like doing all the rites. And I thought it was cool, but it just wasn't like, I didn't walk in there and like, I want to feel transformed if I'm doing something. So, I didn't like it, but I think there was a lot of people there, and I'm telling you, Jeff, they loved it. So I think it has to be a personal choice, when you go and kind of see how you feel when you're in there, and does it feel good to you?
So some people like the community of it, but so like in our fairy tale, you'd be like, you would lure Hansel and Gretel there, except instead of cooking them, you're actually going to give them sweets.
I don't know, maybe. Depends
how noisy they are.
Exactly.
Right. So is it partly because in the coven, just like any other church or group, there's a lot about rank and politics and who's in charge of this committee and that committee, and
for me it was. That's something I get really turned off on about being in any organized religion, and even in like organizations, you see it. People are leading with their egos. Who's got the the right title? Who that the ritual that we did. It was like if you weren't special, you weren't in this section doing that, and that kind of stuff is just for me that's not what it's about. And so it just didn't work for me.
I understand that. I call it homeowners association syndrome. It's anything can become the most important thing in some people's lives, and then and it's like that movie Unbreakable. Once you have a superhero, you're going to find a supervillain. And so once something becomes the most important thing in one person's eyes, the law of nature and balance. Equal and opposites. Somebody else's most important thing is to make sure that your most important thing does not become the most important thing, and or is defeated. All right. You mentioned something earlier, and this was not something we were going to talk about, but I'll ask you if you feel comfortable about it. Because I don't think I've ever spoken to a Mason or really asked too much about Masonry, which is sort of bizarre given how long I've been doing the show and the topic of it. I just have encountered too many people who told me they were Masons and said, I wish I could tell you all the knowledge I have, but I can't. I just figured that, they're mostly full of feces. But what are some of the rituals of the Masons that you study?
So it took a lot of digging, and it was more so their introductory one. And then I tried to interview somebody and I got the same thing. I'm going to back up and just give me a minute, because for me, it started when I joined a sorority. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just, so sure, I'll join. And I showed up, and it was this full ritual robes. And I almost bolted out the door. I thought I had stepped into something insane. And so my understanding, they got a lot of that in the sororities from it came from the Mason type of things. I knew people in, I think it was middle school, high school, who, whatever the ones where the kids did it, and so my understanding is that it was a lot of that, the robes and the pomp and the circumstance and just the ritual. So, it was more of an introductory thing. And it was, had just what I was verifying. I was it's all the same steps, doing all of that. So it's not like I would pretend that I was a Mason or know all of their things in depth, but the little I could glean, it was all right, check. They do the same damn thing.
Right. All institutions are sort of based on the same thing. The military, you've got ranks and ribbons and medals and things like that.
And there's and I get it. And that's ritual gives us a connection piece, right? It feels good to the Masons. It feels good to anybody who's in a group where you have something that nobody else knows. Mm-hmm. It feels really good. In the sorority, we have a secret handshake, a secret motion you do so you could know each other across a crowded room, blah, blah, blah. It feels good to have all of those things, but they're all, I'll bring it back to the Course in Miracles where everything. So, we had this one original thought, which was, what would it be like to be separate? So then we individuated a quadrillion times, all from this thing. And so everything you see, it symbolically is a representation of separation. That's what hell is, being separated from God. And so you can, that's where I'm trying to get around to the point. It's that separation that we're constantly playing out, which is also all of the different religions, all of the different modalities. They're just separating out from that same original thing. Some would say shamanism was the original. Who knows? Before, I think we don't know our history, but at least for our history, that might be the original one. And that's why they all kind of have some of the same formatting.
Right. I don't know if this is in your area. If not, but I also find a lot of overlaps, if not identical, between shamanism and Druid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's not just me. All right, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. Whenever you hear now, witch and witch stuff, very old. Perhaps particular teachings and whatnot, maybe newer, or bringing to a broader audience or making them more accessible, rather newer. Obviously, with books and the internet, that sort of democratized everything to an extent. Do you know what the origin of witchcraft is any more than say, basically what you just told me, that, shamanism is probably the oldest, but we don't really know.
That's my understanding. At least that was my reading, was that it was kind of the time, learned from shamanism and changed during that time for what they had. So,
right.
That's, yeah.
And shaman is just a word that was in one language. There could have been the different, the 27,000 different words for it, unless you actually believe the stuff before the Tower of Babel, that there was only one word for it, but we've lost that word. So, all right. So you can't really talk about witchcraft these days without sort of talking about Madame Blavatsky, and then Aleister Crowley sort of gets lumped in there, and depending on who you're talking to, great philosophers, great teachers, this, that, and the other thing. Others, I'll just use what one of my guests, John Barnwell, said. I'll use it, very in a political way, say not wholesome. So, so what? I mean, were they of any influence to you whatsoever? And if so, what are your takeaways, or what?
A small bit from Aleister Crowley, because I was researching who he was just in terms of the oracle cards and tarot cards, kind of how they became popular. Because I was like, how did this get started? Because I love my oracle and tarot cards. That's a huge part of my personal practice.
Are those two different things, or is you oracle?
They're very different.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, when you're done with this, let's go to the difference.
So Aleister was part of bringing in, and really, taking something and popularizing it. So putting it out there. I think he brought the tarot more so to the collective, in a way that made it, socially acceptable at the time, so everybody kind of wanted to be like, oh, I want to do that. I want to play that. I want to do that. So, that's how I know of him. So I wouldn't say he's influential in any other way to me, other than my understanding of the history was like, oh, he made sure, he was part of that process.
Right. And while I know that you're not the encyclopedia of all things occult and arcane, I'm going to treat you like you are for this purpose. I had a show a long time ago on Satanism and the Church of Satanism, and it turns out that Church of Satanism doesn't believe in Satan at all. It's actually basically sort of, rabid atheists who are basically like, it's like a joke. And then there's other people that say, well, we don't believe that. They really are Satanists. That's just their cover story. I don't care about that. That's a show for a different day. But then there's Luciferians who actually do worship the devil, and I don't quite know what the difference is or where they came from, but Aleister Crowley is tied into the Luciferians in pop mythos. Whether there's any accuracy to it, I know Aleister Crowley from the song by the Moody Blues, where they start saying Aleister Crowley is dead. I mean, they being at summer camp in Maine, and the cooler kids in the bunk listen to rock and roll, while I'm still thinking that John Denver and Linda Ronstadt are cool. So,
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was doing a podcast and we were talking all about, witchcraft, and she's like, well, I'm a Satanist. And I was like, oh, and then I read it, and I read about it, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I get that. So I think I thought it was once I understood it, I thought, what a funny play on words that they did that. But I have not, there's one person, this might be random, and I see him on TikTok, and I thought, what algorithm did I get on? Where, the horns and all of this, and was like, it was all about Lucifer. And I just was not attracted to that, because I feel like, I do believe we all are just as good as we are bad. It's what we choose to focus on. And I just, there was no attraction there. I was like, okay.
Yeah. See, I think that a lot of people, especially in this age of TikTok, YouTube, podcasting, that everyone wants to think that they have some secret knowledge, some secret special something to impart. And I think so too. I think that this show is great, and that 1 million people should be listening to it every week. That is not the case. But what I do know is that I don't have any secret knowledge. What I don't get is that more people don't know what is so obvious that I've seen that's out there, just by looking and listening and drawing lines here, and and eight out of 9 of them connect, and the 9th one was just me reaching for something, and it turns out to have been trash. But and I think at the end of the day, that's sort of what you were looking for. You found it earlier, and the label that it gets is witchcraft or Wicca. But the label just as easily could have been naturalist, or spiritual naturals, whatever. It doesn't, the words don't really matter so much as like what you were saying. It's almost Laotian. We, the yin and yang. In all that is good, there is evil. In all that is evil, there is good. And which I find much better than Buddhism, which is sort of depressing. That life is suffering, so meditate so that it doesn't bother you anymore. And I would rather go, don't kick yourself too hard for your lesser, your weaker, your evil impulses. You just don't act on them. I mean, just control yourself, dummy. If that means.
Or look at them. I tell people, like, don't avoid your shadow work. Like, we are not here to be fun, only good people. And while that's, like, I just have to believe that, Jeff. Like, for me personally, that we came here to have these experiences, to experience the good and the bad. And I do think sometimes people can't make those correlations, and I can relate to it, because I think up until that point, I was so much more unconscious. I just, like, my level of consciousness to what I could comprehend, I just, people would sit and try and talk to me about things. Now I'm like, oh my God, I was so closed and not like, and how frustrating that was for them. And now when people come to me and I'm like, oh, like they can't receive it. They're not ready yet until it gets to a certain point in the collective, and then people can start to hear it, which is why I think we just keep going through the process. So I think that's part of what your job is, getting it out there more.
All right. Now I have a job. That's good. What is the difference between Tarot and Oracle?
So the Tarot is the same set. It's like, I think it's 74 cards. It has the 22 major arcana, which it shows the story of the Fool. So 0 from the Fool, and it takes you all the way through, I think, 21 cards. And then it's kind of his journey, which would be symbolic of our journey of starting, as babies and making our way through the world, going through all of the different iterations. And then there's 4 decks. Some of them there's 2 different versions. So you have like the pentacles, the swords, wands, and, one more. So you have your 4 things, and then it's 1 through, it's then through the king through ace. So each one takes you through that journey. And so you can read them by what's my past, what's my present, what's my future. You can do different spreads, and you can start to tell a story using the tarot cards. Mm-hmm. An oracle card, each deck is very different. It usually will have a theme, but it's more so just like general guidance of the card or a particular deity and a message from them. So like I have some like that are just a Kali deck, and it's just all her, but then others where it's like every goddess that we know of, and put in there. And then they all have, most of the time, positive messages. And you could read them with, like, if you pull it out reversed or upside down, to look at the opposite side of that, to look at the shadow side of it. So it's more for, like, getting answers to questions and receiving guidance in that way.
Okay. So based on our prior conversations, I would be surprised to learn that you actually believe in Kali as a proper noun name. But if that's the deity that the person wants to receive a message, is it your belief that it doesn't matter the name, that there is a spirit that is corresponding to what the attributes of Kali are? They're not actually talking to Kali. It's not a giant blue warrior. Yeah. But there are spirits and energies there that answer to that name, but maybe also 1,000 other names as well.
Yeah. So what I think is, we have that original source energy, which is the big kahuna, and we have the separated ones. And I would imagine we can't envision that. And then we have even more. And then I think that's where our deities lie, right? Those deities then separated out. So we are actually still talking to ourselves when we talk to the deities. And I think we made up all the deities probably. So in Wicca, they'll just say goddess, the goddess, and that is any of the goddesses.
Right.
So yeah, you pull from one. And I think sometimes, like if you're going through something in particular, and a certain goddess comes, then that feels good because they can relate to a certain thing.
Right. So if they're saying, I want to hear from Kali, and they got the message, and they say, I heard from Kali, you're like, you heard from Kali. But if the person says, are you sure it was Kali and not Isis or Inanna? And you might be like, they're sort of the same. I mean, I don't know if those are the right corresponding goddesses.
Well, some people got really hung up on that and really, I think what's really in mass popularity right now, a lot of people are channeling, entities and bringing in all of these, all of that. And I think, it makes me laugh. I'm like, it's all from the same spot. Like we're putting it through our human filter.
I've spoken to so many people who are convinced that right now we are in a life and death struggle against Baal, who,
against who?
Baal, who was, basically a Canaanite god. A Canaanite god of fertility, war, thunder, basically Thor. And like most fertility gods associated with goat. And so now Baal's become Baphomet. Baal also, would fend off disease. So, he would dispel with flies, which is what Beelzebub means. So Baalzebub was sort of the disperser of flies, which became Lord of Flies, which becomes Beelzebub, which becomes a prince of hell, which then gets tied back to, the Enochian and I think other scripts where one of the revolting angels, fallen angels, was Belial, and so Belial, Baal, and Beelzebub are all the same, and that's the Lord of Hell. But now, Beelzebub was one of the 7 princes of hell. Even if you believe in that, and I don't know about you, but if you're one of the 7 princes, doesn't make you the leader, and that probably means that there's a king, a king and a queen or both above you. But nevertheless, it's And Baal often seems to get conflated with Moloch, who was a demon who ate babies and killed babies. I mean, basically stillborn, and things like that. And, I don't know that anyone is wrong or right, in that, but it just seems that if you just go by the straight letters and that just, if you use their own source material, Baal or Beelzebub, whatever, ain't that guy, unless he got some promotions over the eons. Is there any, and this is a very long way of asking, you have the goddess, is there the anti-goddess, is there one particular sort of anti-hero, the villain, the devil, the bad, in your belief system?
So I couldn't answer that for Wicca. That's not something, like, if there is, I don't know it. Mm-hmm. I think I can give, because, I've sort of combined my modalities. So in the Course of Miracles, everything that's bad, with my air quotes, is from the ego, which a lot of people would say, then that's the devil. That's, that's all of that. So there's nothing, like, Wicca, they do say God, but there's no, at least that I've not studied.
I see. It's not to get back.
You see the disappointment on his face.
not to get back to Baal too much, but and again, it's this is only depending if the person who I learned this from is correct or not, yeah. and I don't have their capabilities to check their work and know if that's. But basically Baal was like a title, almost like Darth. You have Darth Maul and Darth Vader. The Baal is sort of like Lord, or And Vader, ironically, is actually father. It means father in a lot of Indo-European languages, and it's just weird how certain things convert. Now listen, I don't know that the Lord of Evil hasn't taken on the name Baal, always or more recently. I don't want to turn off the people who are sure about that, because I'd love to hear more about it. I mean, it is Garden of Doom after all. There needs to be a Lord of Doom. In fact, or else the show's going to end an awkward ending like Lost. He was looking for nothing all along. All he was looking for was a good mirror and time to stare at himself. But yeah, I find those things interesting. Is there any equivalent? I'm sort of thinking that maybe the philosophy that and philosophies that you subscribe to sort of managed to eschew that, to sort of avoid that whole kind of thing, where there was some sort of morphing of one creature into another creature, and then they sort of become this all-powerful, nemesis or savior.
Yeah, that's not something, that I've really studied or subscribed to be honest with you. I think unless you take it back to my ego thing of, because I have people who reach out to me often. I was like, what? I don't know what's happening out there in the collective, but I get a lot of people who say, I really want to kill my ego. I really want to kill my ego. I lash out too much. So I look at that from because I do think we all have, I call it the inner troll, where we're, we lash out, or we have, we all have that capability. So I just don't have it in my philosophy of there's something bad in there. Cause even, when I like to imagine it and think about, angels and all of that, there could be, I just think it's, when you get to that level, I think it's laughable, to say something's good or bad.
I'm just saying angels are extraterrestrials. Yeah. And there's nothing blasphemous about that because they're not of Earth. So, hey, they're extraterrestrial, even in the most religious of sanctums. So, all right. So enough about me and my wanderings and my wonderings. What services do you perform and what are like the top 4 or 5 things that you do, and are they the same as the top 4 or 5 things that you would like to do?
Yeah. I'm in the process of sort of shifting how I go about my business side of everything. What I love to do is teach people how to do a ritual that combines all of these things. And to teach you how to make it your own, so that if you're like, well, that doesn't speak to me, how do I do that? I like to incorporate a lot of the different modalities of using crystals and essential oils, and then teaching you how to make your spell blended with prayer in that format that we talked about. So I have some that are already done in kits, and I teach people how to make their own. And then the other thing that I get a lot of is I do a lot of custom spell work for people to help them do their own manifesting work.
Well, earlier you said you don't have the eloquence. Can't you give yourself a spell of eloquence?
I probably could.
Well, there you go. You're welcome. Problem solver right here.
I love it.
All right. So I'm sure that there is a question of questions that I didn't ask you that I should have. So you can either phrase them as questions and then give the answers, or just, go on a speech.
What else have you not asked me? You asked some good questions, I think, and I loved your take. Well, because I think we're all looking for meaning, and we're all, and so I think there's a lot of fear in the world, and I like to walk a fine line, where, you're talking about the bad guy, the evil. I don't like to tell anybody that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Because that's like somebody telling me, my stuff doesn't exist. I do think that we're here to practice learning how to work with our mind to show up our how we want our physical experience. And I think it's really, really hard work. And so I think it's really easy to blame a bad guy, blame the ego, blame whatever, instead of what I like to do is say, okay, clearly this is here for a reason. It doesn't feel good. So what can I do? And that for me is the work. So either you need to do your shadow work. We all have trauma. Because if you spend all your time doing ritual, doing manifestation work, but you're not doing the other side of doing your shadow work, then you're not in that balance. And that's the whole thing. It's all about the balance. The other thing we didn't talk about, which to me was the more transformational piece, and we talked a little, but when I brought in the elements and I look at every day I do it, where am I out of balance or imbalance in my air, which is my mental energy. So like, where am I in or out of balance with my fire? Especially like when I'm at my corporate job and I'm not feeling like I'm able to express, I'm like, let me pull in my fire. Or like if I need to be more, handle my emotions better, bring in my water, or if I need to be grounded. So that's for me a really important practice that keeps everything grounded and keeps me more centered, which is, I just think that's the purpose. And I personally have just started to go, I'm done trying to do all this research and read all the stuff about everything. Like we just are, we're here. And so what can I do? And that's the work that I like to do. Like, what can we do now to start working on our shit, healing ourselves and trying to manifest stuff, And so that to me is what I would like to help everybody do.
Right. Whether it's a devil inside or a devil outside, these methods, these trainings the work will help you. Now, you mentioned shadow work. I think that in context we could figure it out, but expressly, what is shadow work?
So, when people have, like, have you ever, when you just lash out at somebody and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Or, we get triggered when we're in special relationship, whether that's a partner, kids, I don't care, at work. And there's certain things that come out of nowhere. You have these emotions. It's usually negative of some sort, and, or some sort of trauma, something that's impacted you that you haven't dealt with is what, people would call shadow work. And so going in and honoring it, looking at it. Oh, I see you there. What can I do to help heal you? And really what they're saying is, how do I bring this to the light? And when like, there are people who I think live in the Pollyanna world. Everything is love and light, and it's like, is it?
Right.
And so that's doing your shadow work. It's the opposite of that.
Gotcha. So is this what the coastal elites would call therapy?
Probably.
By the way, I'm probably at least close enough to what many people consider a coastal elite. I live in the coast. I went to college and grad school. So, that probably counts close enough. So I'm sort of making fun of myself when I do that. All right. Where can people find you, follow you, retain you, find out about your services? Do you have anything to sell and promote?
Yeah, my website is intuitive-resources.com. That's where people can book me to do sessions. I do offer the EFT, the iridology, or the custom spell work. And I have all the kits and everything that I do on there. And then on there, you could find me on all of the social medias as well. I don't do, that's not my happy place, doing stuff on social media. So I do like to pull cards. That to me is a ritual that I like to do every day. I offer a guidance kit to teach people how to pull their own cards, a daily practice so that you can get guidance and start working with your divine team, whatever that looks like. So I do like to pull cards for people on social media to do that.
All right, dear audience, you know that usually I ask for the plugs at the end, but I made a promise and I didn't forget it. We are going to end with, what did you read in this mug here that you are seeing? The audience, you're not seeing it, but if you want to, you've been able to figure out how to find a picture of me. So what have you found in this face? You've now had just over an hour of seeing me in different expressions, struggle with brains, forget thoughts, refine them. What can you tell me about me?
I love it. So I can't do your eyes since we're not super, super close. So if I'm going to read your face, and read what, and you've got the beard, so I can't see if you have a cleft palate, but I can tell you, like, on your forehead, I can see that your intestines are slightly full. And you might have some congestion, which would also then say this is the person who gets very mental and congested in there, and perhaps has some childhood trauma that they haven't processed. Ooh. That's what I would say when I see that. You don't have anything on your nose here for your heart. You're under your eyes. can be your lungs and kidneys. And so I would say,
what's that mean about my nose? I mean, I don't have a heart. Am I like the
No, I mean, yours is fine. I don't see anything there to indicate like, ooh. So if you see somebody with a really red tip on their nose, then you would go, oh crap, like I hope, like keep some cayenne pepper nearby, like their heart's not doing well.
Okay. So under my eyes.
And I don't know if it's the shadows. So if they're dark, like they look like, usually that's kidneys, which would mean dehydration, which would mean somebody who probably has some more fears that they live in versus not.
Okay. I'm definitely not dehydrated, but I don't think it's shadows. Now, lots of people tell you that they're fearless and they don't have fear. No. I am full of fear. I just accept it. And I think that everybody is full of fear. So that part is true, but I think that the shadows and everything. So if it's not kidneys, what would be number 2?
Lungs.
Yeah, lungs probably aren't that great. I don't exercise that much. And the intestines, they probably are a little bit congested. A little bit of red meat in there and ice cream.
But there's somebody, it's a famous actor, and I saw him do, I had seen him through the different series that he had done, and I said to somebody, I said, oh, he's not doing well. It's like he's gotten full of crap. You can see, it's hard to tell when people do a lot of Botox, but you could tell he hadn't done it. So yours is not nearly as bad, just a little bit.
I've done no Botox. So this is, for better or worse, this is all natural. Okay, well that's not terrible.
No.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
You'll take that.
Yeah. I mean, nothing too distressing, nothing too scandalous or too interesting for the audience, but at the same time, it's sort of my soul we're talking about and my body. So, everybody, looks like you'll be stuck with me for a little bit longer. All right. I always ask this guest, or not always, but usually.
Okay.
If there's a song you'd like me to use as an outro that you think ties into you or the theme of the show, what song should I use?
That is the worst question for me.
I know, I'm terrible at questions.
Well, the song, I'm not, I know, and I'm like, it's so silly, but as soon as you said it, like the song came in, I'm Every Woman. I don't know why.
Well, I'm Every Woman. It's all in me. Okay. We can do Shaka Khan here. We don't really need excuses to rock with Shaka. So okay. So that shall be the song. And I thank you very much for being on the show. I hope you had fun. I thought it was fun and learned a lot. And I think verified and validated some of the stuff that some of our prior guests have said as well. So awesome. I thank you very much for being on Garden of Doom. And folks, I hope you've liked this and enjoyed this. You got her socials. If you forgot them, well, rewind about 3 minutes and there they'll have been, or probably close to 6 minutes at this point with my ramblings. And hopefully you'll give us a like, a subscribe, a review, a rating, and tell your friends and family. Personal referrals is where I think the show really grows. Anyway, thank you very much, Abbie Martin, for being on the show. And if Baal is the evil one, may he not touch your life.
I love it. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, we're clear there. So,
okay.